Hi everyone, this is Dan for thecreativemusician.net, and today I'm bringing you a short video that will hopefully save you a bit of time and headache if you do plan to get into performing live and you're wondering what equipment you might require. Let's get started. Now, whether you've been performing for years or you're just getting into the space, there's no better feeling than actually performing live in front of a live audience. Now, it goes without saying that if you're even remotely interested in performing live, you must know the thrill and the energy you can get from performing in front of a live audience. There really is no feeling other than that feeling of captivating an audience or creating that relationship between an audience and your music. Now, the great thing about performing live is you're getting your name out there, you're sharing your music, and you're also building up your reputation and your networking, as well as perhaps a following on social media. So it all sort of comes together to help develop you as an artist. Now, if you're just getting into it or you don't have a decent understanding of sound or audio equipment, it can actually be quite challenging to figure out what you need to bring into these venues, because let's face it, not all venues will actually provide you a sound equipment. And in my experience, most venues will not have a sound system of their own. So it's up to you as the artist to bring your own equipment into the space. Now, the sound equipment that you're going to need is largely going to depend on what your live performance looks like. If you're a singer-songwriter who's just playing guitar and singing, you're not going to need the same sort of sound equipment that a full band would need. Now, it's important to remember the size of the venues that you're planning to perform at, because you're not going to need a huge sound system if you only ever plan on performing in small clubs or pubs. Now, the opposite is also true if you have too small of a sound system and let's say you now want to play with a band or something like that. You might actually end up in a situation where your sound system isn't powerful enough for the venues that you plan to play at. When it comes to your live setup, here are 3 things that you really need to consider. The first thing to consider is your front of house sound. Now, this is the sound that's coming out of your main speakers towards your audience. This is what your audience is going to be listening to throughout your show. Now, the second thing to consider is how you as the performer are going to hear yourself in that live setting. You may have noticed this before, but if you ever do perform where you've got speakers in front of you, it can be very, very challenging to actually hear yourself in that setting because you're not actually getting that response back. It's very difficult to determine what you're actually inputting into the sound system. Now, there's 2 ways you can go about this. You can have in-ear monitors or you can have floor monitors. Now, some performers might prefer in-ear monitors, whereas some might prefer floor monitors. It's really just going to come down to your own personal preference. Now, if you do have the budget for it, it can actually be quite helpful to have both in-ear monitors and a set of floor monitors as well. That way you can pick and choose which you think you might need for that particular venue. Now, lastly to consider are your personal items. So your guitar, your microphone, mic stand, any cables that you need for your setup, as well as guitar picks, capos, 9-volt batteries, or any other batteries that you need for your wireless units, for example. These are all things that you cannot be looking for at the gig. You need to know where they are and that you've got plenty. Now, this is why it's so important that you're incredibly organized when it comes to your sound equipment and what you're bringing into the venues. There's absolutely nothing worse than arriving at a venue to realize that you forgot a cable that you need or you don't have any spare 9-volt batteries for your guitar. So these are all things that you need to plan in advance. Now, this might sound a bit overkill for some, but because I perform so regularly, it's important that I have an entirely separate equipment setup that I do not touch for any of my home recording or anything like that. I keep everything entirely separate. That way I know I've got everything in the right cases and that I just need to put the right cases in the car when I'm going to perform. Now, it might seem a bit above and beyond, but because I've got the 2 separate setups, there's no chance that I'm going to forget to bring things that I need because I didn't grab it from the music room, or you know what I mean? It's nice to have two separate setups. Now, over on the creativemusician.net, I've actually put together a free download for you. It's a spreadsheet that actually helps you to organize all of your equipment, and that way you know what's in, what equipment you have and where it is. I've left a link down in the description below. Now, one thing I did early on that was really beneficial was I put all of my equipment into tour and road cases, because it gives me the peace of mind that my equipment's protected when I'm hauling it in and out of venues, but it also helps me to stay organized and just on top of where everything is. And the one nice thing about having a separate live sound system all ready to go in tour cases is that it's very streamlined. I don't have to think about it. I just, I know I have a show, I take that equipment, I put it in the car, I grab my guitar, and off I go, because I know I've got a mic stand. I know I've got all the cables I need. I've got spares, I've got batteries, I've got, everything that I could possibly need for that venue. So it really does pay to be proactive and be organized. Now, I've done a couple other videos on the specifics. I've done a video on active versus passive speakers, so this will help you if you're trying to set up a front of house setup. And I've also done another video on in-ear monitors and floor wedges as well, just to sort of go through the details as to which can better suit you for your setup. So be sure to check out those other videos. Now, something worth mentioning, a couple of stage lights can really go a long way in just sort of setting the tone and establishing your presence as a musician in a venue. It can really set the tone and create a bit of an atmosphere at a venue. So it doesn't hurt to invest in a couple stage lights as well that you can just add to your live sound setup. So the key takeaway here is set up a system that works for you and get your stuff organized in a way that is manageable for your personal setup. That way it takes the guesswork out of your shows, and you can focus on performing. You don't have to worry about the equipment because you know you've got it all sorted. Now, lastly, it does take a lot of courage and commitment to want to put yourself in such a vulnerable position, being on stage and performing in front of an audience. So good for you for wanting to pursue that if you're just getting into it. And I really do wish you nothing but the best. Again, my name's Dan for thecreativemusician.net, and we'll see you in the next video.